Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Nltv. This is the 5th episode of our 3rd series. We're doing very well. Thank you for joining. How are you, Rabbanit?
We are doing fine. Thank you. A jam-packed session tonight. Lots going on.
Yes, full on. Tonight we're full on. Next week as well as we approach Purim. But before we do approach Purim, I just want to make mention of this Thursday night, which is Zayin Adar, the 7th day of the month of Adar, Thursday night and Friday. And the 7th of Adar is the yahrzeit and the birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses himself. He died on his 120th birthday, and it's because of his fulfilled life that we always wish people, add 120, or as they say in Yiddish, bis 120, and traditionally, the 7th of Adar has always been a day which is marked by Chevra Kadisha, worldwide groups of the Chevra Kadisha. And our community is no different. We have our HGSS Chevra Kadisha, which is
for the men, right? Because the women have the United Synagogue.
Yeah, so there's the United Synagogue head, the General Chevra Kadisha, and HGSS has their own men's group. Now, most people don't know who's on the men's group, and it's supposed to be that way. The only people who know are on the group are the other members of the group, because being involved in Chevra Kadisha work is what's called chesed shel emes, true kindness. Because if I do a favor for somebody else, if I lend my next door neighbor my lawnmower, it's only expected, next week I need to borrow a screwdriver, they're going to lend it to me, because fair enough, I lent them my lawnmower, they lend me that, and whenever you do a favor for somebody, one usually can reasonably expect a favor in return. However, when doing a favor for somebody who's no longer alive, that is just altruistic chesed. You're doing a mitzvah to get nothing in return. You're just doing it for the sake of the mitzvah and nothing else. And we have many.
Not even a thank you.
Not even a thank you. And even the family in the event of a bereavement, the family of the bereaved, they won't know usually what goes on behind the scenes and who is involved. All they need to know is that the community rallied together to do what's necessary in preparation for the Levaya. And those who are on the team, they don't want people to know that they're on the team. They don't do it for the thank you. They do it solely for the mitzvahs. We have a very, very dedicated team of amazing volunteers who do it just for the mitzvah. They don't want the name anywhere. They don't get money, and they don't even want thank you. Sometimes the family will find out who was involved, and someone once said to me, well, I said thank you, and they just looked at me. I said, yeah, because they're not doing it for the thank you, and it can be a bit awkward as well. They're just doing it for the mitzvah. So the Chevra Kadisha are an amazing group of people, and on the 7th of Adar, together with many other shuls, will get together for they fast on the day, and then they break your fast with a big meal, a suda, and it's a suda's mitzvah, although the ground staff call it the grave digger's bull. So obviously this year there'll be no meal. It's all going to be on Zoom. Dan Binstock will be speaking. I just wanted to take these few moments just to pay tribute to people who you don't even know. So there's a great bunch of men and women out there. Thank you very much. And that's all we're going to say to them. Okay?
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. You'll see later on in the show, when we interview Rabbi and Rebbetzin Baum, one of the things that came out from the lockdown is they found people, during this pandemic that just came out because they wanted to help in any way they can. Before they weren't doing anything, and suddenly their leadership skills came out or their volunteerism came out. And so unfortunately, during times of need, you have people coming out and coming forward to do wonderful things.
100%. I've seen that across the community. I was speaking to someone just today who's never previously been involved, but now he's made his house a collection point for gifts to give out to frontline workers. And he said, look, I just feel I've got to do my bit. And that's an amazing thing. It's really bringing out the best in people. Of course, we're all struggling, but everyone feels in their own way they want to do something to contribute, because we're all in this together.
Absolutely. And on that note, following the talk of the Jewish Disability Awareness Month that we had with Dr. Bev Jacobson and Deborah Gondel from JWeb and Rabbi David Cohen from Yachad, and he felt he wanted to share his story. Jordan Freud, who's a member of HGSS, who's autistic, and talks to Rabbi Friedman about his upbringing, you know, how he managed at Norris Lee in Children's Services, and how he was able to overcome his challenges and went to university and has a career. Let's go over to Rabbi Friedman and hear what he has to say.
Jordan Freud, welcome to Norris Lee TV. What an honor and pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure's mine, thank you.
So Jordan is a member of our HESS community, and Jordan, this month is Jewish Disability Awareness and Inclusion Month, and Jordan very courageously offered to share some of his life experiences with us. Jordan, tell us about your life.
Thank you. I suppose I'm local, so I grew up in Hampstead Garden suburb and around there in Finchley. I studied at Brooklands, which is just around the corner from the synagogue. I was, came to services, and I was actually a member of Learn to Lead, would you believe it, some years ago, quite some years ago now. One thing is for sure that I've always had a very supportive family around me. I think it's important to say it first. As many people may know, others might not. I'm disabled or neurodiverse, and I'm autistic. So I received a diagnosis when I was young, when I was at school actually at Brooklands, that I'm on the autism spectrum, which is it's a learning and social disability, so to speak, a condition. But it was with support from family that I was able, from family and also professionals, fortunately, both externally within the local borough, and then also at school. I studied at JFS. And one memory, if I'm honest, is in my early years, that when I was at Shul at Norris Lee, HGSS, that I often actually remember feeling, or being made to feel somewhat of an outsider, just in the sense that I didn't necessarily know the parameters and how to socialize, quote unquote, right, or I was misunderstood, so I would often be sent out of children's services or sent out of Learn to Lead, even though I was really keen. And I'll be honest, I did act up a bit, but nonetheless, it was due to me not really knowing or being explained how to act.
Jordan, if you were to give advice to the children's leader from when you were growing up, all right, suddenly you're now a fly on the wall, what would you say to that leader dealing with that child that he or she perceives to be disruptive, and not knowing, either not knowing that the child is autistic, or not knowing how to deal with an autistic child? What would you say to them? How would you advise them?
Well, thank you for asking. I think, and I will take, I think the most important thing is to try to have a conversation. And below all of that is to be empathetic, to be open, and to be caring. We're part of a community, and we do want to include everyone. So I would say have a conversation, maybe with the person themselves, me, have that conversation with that young Jordan and explain why certain things are okay or aren't okay. But I think also when you're in a community, it's important to have a conversation with the parents, not to be too judgmental, to try and be open-minded and say, there are some issues in the children's service, for example. Can we talk about this so that we understand it as well? How can we, are there any reasonable adjustments, for example, that we can provide to ensure that Jordan is able to be included? But I do want to say that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And of course, I only have one personal experience. I speak to other people. There can be light at the end of the tunnel. I after Brooklands, studied at the University of Leeds for 4 years. I was fortunately, and I hope I say this with humility, but very successful. I came out with a very good degree, a 2-1, and throughout my time, I'd been involved with theatre charities, with TV, and despite COVID happening, which I appreciate, both for me and many people with disabilities and people who don't. COVID and having a global pandemic makes it really difficult, and it's a disruption to everyone's lifestyles, everyone's routines. Fortunately, I found a job. I'm working full time now. But the message I'd really like to get out there is that firstly, that there can be light at the end of the tunnel. And I can't speak on behalf of other people, but I believe there is also, you know, a nefesh and a well-being part of the synagogue that can help you on the road to getting that support. I know that my own parents said that the time between thinking that I was autistic and getting a diagnosis and then getting the support, which does take time, was really difficult. And I just want to, in light of that, say, I think it's really important for everyone in the community, every individual and as a collective, to open our hearts and minds, to have empathy, to have those conversations. And really, if you, someone who's watching this, or your family member is struggling, or you just think, you know, you want them to have a fulfilling and meaningful life and, you know, engagement with the synagogue, and the Jewish community, which I hope we will do, please do come forward. Again,
and I know, I mean, Jordan, thank you. I mean, your story is truly inspiring, and I do want to add in with the story of your children's service. You know, these things happen, and it's important for our members to know that, you know, if the children's service leaders or any issues one is encountering in the shul that doesn't seem to be working out, people don't seem to be understanding, our members should also know that our door is always open, and we are here to discuss and to try to assist in any way that we can. But Jordan, I know that when we were chatting the other day and I said to you, wow, how brave you are, and that there are families that I know of struggling right now, especially with kids who are on the spectrum and, you know, now closed up in the four walls of their home during lockdown. And you said, well, you know, your story is a story of hope, to be able to share with these parents, to know that, you know, the struggles along the way, their children can and will, please God, overcome and be able to get to a point of university, success, career. But I know you've also very kindly offered to be there if people do need, you know, a chat. So, and any other thoughts of engagement that you'd like to just share with the community?
Yes, well, I think just so that I can process some of the things that you're saying that indeed we did talk about the other day, I think, you know, everyone's experience is different. You know, for example, I am autistic, and on the autism spectrum, there are so many different experiences, let alone different disabilities, different things to do with mental health, etc., etc. And that should be included to everyone, be they able-bodied, so to speak, disabled or not. And in terms of speaking, I want to say, you know, fundamentally, I'm not a professional, so I can't offer the professional support, but what I'm more than happy and would be delighted to support is a chat, you know, whether it's talking about my experiences further or just listening. Actually, I wasn't a fantastic listener when I was younger, but I worked really, really hard. And most people tell me I'm actually a very attentive listener now. So everyone hopefully knows that the synagogue is there for them, that the community is. But now that we've got the platform, why not just at least hope I can speak on my behalf, not on behalf of the synagogue, but say as a community member, we are open. And I can say wholeheartedly, I'd love it if people felt comfortable to go forward. And there are 2 points. Firstly, anything you say to the synagogue team is completely confidential. You know, it won't be spoken to anyone else. But also, I've been debating this in my mind. I think the fundamental has to be that you feel comfortable that what you say will be kept confidentially. But in the spirit of openness and communication in the wider community, to break what can be a taboo. You know, people can just think, oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing, so I won't say anything at all, or I won't speak up. So what I'd say is, if you're happy to, it's also great to let people know, you know, not you don't have to be out like me shouting, you know, saying this is me and this is my story. But if you're saying this is the support that the community could give to me, you know, and it's okay if people talk about it, that would be great too.
Well, thank you so much. Your courage and your go-getter attitude are so inspirational. I've been inspired by this conversation, and I'm sure all of our viewers and members will be inspired by this unforgettable conversation, and really an inspirational young man that you are. I know you're going to go to incredible places in the career in your life. Thank you for sharing your story with us, and thank you for being an inspiration to us all.
Very courageous to come out and tell his stories, and really be available for anybody to come out and talk to him. So
it's very, very encouraging hearing things like that. And thank you, Rabbi Friedman, for facilitating that interview.
Thank you.
Very brave of him to share it.
Absolutely. It's very important to educate and be aware of any challenges that one may have. And talking about education, Sir Victor Blank, another HESS member, did an amazing contribution to the Oxford Bodleian Library. And Rabbi Friedman speaks to him about that. Let's go over to them.
So Victor Blank, welcome to Nltv. It is an honor to have you with us.
I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Apart from being a leader of Anglo Jewry, a leader of World Jewry, a leader of British society, and an international leader, you are, of course, a cherished member of Hampstead Garden Suburb Synagogue, and it's such a blessing to have you in our midst. So thank you. Thank you for everything you do.
Very nice of you there. I think that is somewhat of an exaggeration of my contribution to society. But anyway, I'm very honored to be a member and happy to do the things I do.
Well, thank you. Today we're going to be talking about one of your latest incredibly generous pursuits, and that is your donation to the Bodleian Library at Oxford for the Judaica and Hebrew manuscript and book collection for a curatorship for the next 25 years. Can you tell us a little about that?
Well, I mean, it's actually more than that. And we, together with the Rothschild Foundation, have endowed the post of curator in perpetuity. I mean, it's forever. I was looking to do. I mean, you know, like most members of your community and our community, have done lots in the philanthropic field where I can, you know, particularly with students and so on. But I was looking to do something more significant to make a more lasting contribution, and the collection in the Bodleian, which is Hebrew and books, is as good a collection as there is anywhere in the world, probably apart from the National Library of Israel. And the curatorship needs to be a position held by a great librarian, and the university wanted to endow the post so that it could be sure it was there in perpetuity. And the collection, I mean, I knew the Bodleian well because I studied in there when I was an undergraduate. I'm very friendly with the librarian at the Bodleian, and it appealed to me to help to endow in perpetuity this very important part of our heritage. And
well, it is
I was very fortunate that having been chairman of the Rothschild Hanadiv Europe Foundation for 10 years, and they were interested in this position as well. I discussed it with Lord Rothschild, and we agreed that we would fund it together.
Well, that's really incredible. Thank you. Thank you to both yourself and the Rothschild Hanadiv Foundation. This is really going to be an incredible source for scholars and people generally of important information and historical information, and ultimately it's the history that frames the way we look at things going forward. Tell us a little about the curator. He's already in situ.
He's been in post for some time. He's a wonderful guy. I got to meet him only latterly. I mean, I was looking at the position in abstract rather than particularly because of him, but he's been there for some years and is a very fine guy. And the collection that he looks after goes back to the foundation of the Bodleian, and the first catalogue of the Bodleian Library. I think 10% of the books in that catalogue were Hebrew books. Because, of course, the link between the religious establishment, the Protestant religious establishment, and Hebrew has always been very close. And most of the leading clerics were Hebraists or knew Hebrew. In fact, one collection was acquired by the Bodleian from a guy who was professor of Hebrew and professor of Arabic at the university in the 17th century.
Have these manuscripts and books been collected over a period of centuries? Where are they from? How did we acquire most of them?
Well, the library was founded or refounded in the very beginning of the 17th century, 1600-ish. And at that time, the original collection, which was given to the library by the founder, Thomas Bodley, included these Hebrew books and manuscripts. As I mentioned, after that, they have acquired either by legacy, where people have left collections to the library, or by acquisition from all kinds of sources, including rabbis in Germany and bishops in Rome.
I understand there's an original manuscript of Maimonides, handwritten.
There is indeed. There is indeed. Yeah.
Now that's very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And these things are all available to be seen by people who are interested. There's also very close cooperation between the Bodleian Library and the National Library of Israel. And the digitization of the collections in Israel is linked increasingly with those in the Bodleian. I mean, the idea of the National Library of Israel is that it digitizes basically all Jewish and Hebrew manuscripts and books so that they're available for scholars throughout the world and forever.
Right, the world is becoming so much of a smaller place, yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, Sir Victor. Thank you for today's interview, and thank you for everything you do for scholarship and for the world generally. Thank you.
No, very nice to be with you. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, thank you, Victor and Rabbi Freeman. It must have been amazing just to hold the Rambam's signature. I've had that experience myself in Cambridge University Library. With the Cairo Geniza collection, to hold 800-year-old manuscripts. It's an amazing thing, a real link to our past. So thank you for sharing that with us. We have many other talented members in our community. Our own resident interviewer, Simone Halfin, who's very good at her job, who meets another doctor of ours, Dr. Jackie Marshall, a regular at Shul, and who has been tremendously busy together with her husband, Jeremy, vaccinating people. We've had their daughter Esther on about her book, It's Okay Not to Be Okay, who I quoted, by the way, for my message to the youth last week, just saying, hashtag. And so Rabbanit Batya goes over to Neasden Temple to see Dr. Marshall on site.
Yes, I also actually had a pre-interview with her about it, and then we went down to see it on site. Quite.
Well, let's have a look at it.
Welcome, Dr. Jackie Marshall to Norsley TV.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So we know that you're also married to a doctor, Dr. Jeremy Marshall.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're not in the same practice, right? It was two different practices?
No. Jeremy was an Islington GP and I was a Brent GP for 30 years. So I've been doing a lot of work there. And things are very different in Brent as compared to Barnet. There's a lot more ethnicity, people who don't speak English, people who are a bit hesitant about having the vaccine. perhaps not as aware of what's going on. So they've been really trying to work out ways to get more people to come to the program. And then suddenly the other problem that we've had on the program is we don't know when we're going to get deliveries or which kind of vaccine we're going to get. If we get the British Oxford AstraZeneca one, that can stay in the fridge for 3 months. Right. But if you receive the Pfizer vaccine, then it's over 1,000 vaccines you've got to get rid of within 3 or 4 days. Absolutely. So was it last week, the week before, on a Thursday morning, mid-morning, the Pfizer vaccine arrives and we weren't expecting it. And they didn't, where they were at the time, they didn't have access there past Saturday morning, which meant they had 2.5 days to suddenly get rid of over 1,000 vaccines. And you obviously wanted to go to the right people. So we were trying to think of ways to do this. And I thought, well, I'll message Rabbi Daniel, which I did. And he got back to me immediately. I said, if you know any rabbis who have congregants in Brent who fall into the current categories of people who are being vaccinated, please, you know, let them know that we have vaccines available. And I had 3 rabbis contact me, and each had various congregants who, for whatever reason, hadn't been able to access vaccines. So we got them in, which was great.
That's amazing.
Most of the people who volunteer there are from the Neasden Temple, the Hindu temple, which you can see it's just off the North Circular. It's a very beautiful temple, and they are wonderful, and they certainly help with the translating, which again helps people to access the vaccine. But I went up to the guy who organizes the volunteers and I said, look, this is what I've done in the Jewish community, but we're very small. You've got a much bigger community. And he said, this is a brilliant idea. So before I knew it, he got 12 women in. They were all calling, and they were calling as if they were calling from the temple. And within an hour, we were deluged by elderly Hindu people from the temple. And it was interesting. All this information's available about the vaccine and contact your GP, or, you know, how to make an appointment. They hadn't done it, but the temple called them. They came in.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
we had to stay, Jeremy and I stayed for an extra 2 hours, and they managed to get rid of all the vaccines, which was it's good. You don't want a single drop of this stuff to be wasted. So that was
absolutely not
amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. You know, the networks that, you know, that we have is really important, and that it spilled over into the Hindu community. The great idea that you had. Yasher Koch, that's an amazing story.
I mean, it's trying to think outside the box. So we've got a very good, in fact, it started off as a female Jewish doctors group. We've now let some of them in. And I have to say, it's been absolutely amazing, the network, and everybody helping everybody else. It's been incredible throughout the whole, you know, since last March. It's been absolutely amazing. People find a research paper or something interesting that's happening, or a million things. It's just been great. But I did a shout out and said, if consultants have got patients who live in Brent who they feel are vulnerable, to get in touch with me. So there's a professor, unfortunately at St. Mary's, in the renal department. They lost 37% of their dialysis patients. So I private messaged her and said, look, you must have patients in Brent. So we've got together a few lists of patients, and they're all coming for vaccine tomorrow, which is, I think, really is life-saving. So we're always trying to think of a way to go outside the box. And I'd encourage anyone who's watching this, if you've got work colleagues, your employees, anybody you know, please try and encourage them to take the vaccine once they become eligible in any of these categories.
Wow. Well, amazing. I mean, this is really, you know, really going out to the people. We have it available. We know that it's out there, and yet, like you say, not everybody's coming to it. But now you're taking that extra step to really reach out. Yasher Koach, and
unless we have enough people taking the vaccine program itself isn't going to work.
That's right.
So we really, really need everyone to try and chip into this.
Right, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for amazing work, and for all the, you know, like I say, a lot of the doctors coming together and making this hopefully getting us out of here very, very soon. Situation.
Absolutely. We kind of feel each vaccine given is one step closer to normality, please God.
Amen. Thank you.
Okay, we're here at the Neasden Temple.
So this is the school connected to the Hindu temple in Neasden, and they've very kindly lent it to us to try and get more ethnic minorities to come and get their vaccines, and it's been very successful. This is where people come, and you can see how many sheets of paper there are. Each one of them is somebody who's got an appointment. If we have lots of people vaccinating, but if there's too many, then this is a waiting room over here.
Have you found with this weather people haven't turned up?
This morning we were a bit slow in the morning, but it's picking up now. So hopefully people will catch up and will come for their vaccines.
Volunteers have been phoning up to ask people to come, and people, because they're from the Hindu temple.
The Hindu religion has been very good at publicising. They have something similar to our channel. They have every night. They've been publicising that it's absolutely fine. The Afro-Caribbean population, the ones we're having trouble accessing at the moment, and we're thinking maybe through the sickle cell patients trying to access families like that, but there's a lot of hesitancy in that population, which is a shame.
And which vaccine are you using? Are you using
whatever
both?
we're given. The supply chain is very erratic,
Is it?
so we use whatever we've given. We're actually down to our last 600 today, so unless we get a delivery, we're going to have to cancel everything tomorrow.
It's absolutely amazing. You are advertising for people to come, and everybody is normally begging to come down.
So I think Barnet is a very different
Yes.
equation to Brent.
Yes, it is. And you were about to go off and do something else, weren't you, on the point of retiring?
We were meant to be going to Brazil and Argentina for a month, but that wasn't going to happen, so we thought, never mind, we'll volunteer for the vaccination programme.
That you actually, you were vaccinating at Lord's.
Yes.
Which,
I've been in lots of places. Started at the Royal Free when it all kicked off, in Temple Fortune, being further north in Barnet as well. Brent is where I practiced for 30 years, so it's an area that I know, and I feel able to access the people who are not perhaps coming forward and help with the sort of logistics of getting those people to come in.
and one fun thing about Lord's, I was interviewing there, and I was interviewing the ladies' captain, actually, and I'm doing the interview, and I see this huge Hermolus catering van come up and offload stuff into the hospitality area, which I thought was quite funny.
Yes. Well, that's kind of where we were vaccinating. So at the very end, we went and had a coffee and looked out onto the actual cricket pitch.
Oh, it's lovely.
But their supply has been extremely erratic, so there'll be a shout out that goes out and says, by the way, we're being delivered last Tuesday, got 2,000 vaccines, all hands on deck. So it was go, go, go for one morning, and it really was fast and furious.
So there are masses of volunteers coming forward.
Yeah, everyone you see in a yellow vest
Yes.
is a volunteer from the Hindu temple.
Yes.
They've got a very big army of they've got their own Nefesh network.
I noticed as we came in, the temple looks absolutely amazing, actually.
It is beautiful. Yeah.
I'm looking forward
They're not holding services at the moment. Every night they have a broadcast, and they try and build in things about health and COVID, but also it's a community that's very hit by diabetes and blood pressure, so they talk a lot about those things as well. So they're very health conscious, which is good. Area, you can see it's all blacked out. This was where they had their drama. This was the stage, the drama area. So this had the most plug points, because we've had to get a lot of electricity and internet into here, but you can see all the extension cables everywhere. Because everybody who comes in is logged on a central system, and that's how you get on the BBC how many people have been vaccinated. It's going onto a central system that documents everybody who's been vaccinated.
My goodness.
And then that also will feed into GPs so they know, and it will also call them for their second vaccine. and it records what sort of vaccine they get so that we can call them back to get the same vaccine the second time.
Does it have to be the same one the second time?
Those are the rules at the moment, but as you've seen, the rules change.
Oh, yes. And how long do you think it will be? I mean,
so they're saying now between 10 and 12 weeks. If the production lines get up better, then I think it might be sooner. But it's not like printing a book. You have to talk very nicely to these bacteria in this biological manufacturing to get it to work. So it's a very fragile, delicate process.
And any idea when things might start to get back to normal?
I'm very optimistic, actually.
Are you?
I feel that as we're now pretty much vaccinated, 1 in 5 adults, and those 1 in 5 adults are the most at risk, I think hopefully we're going to see a fantastic improvement in people needing to go to hospital, and God forbid the scenario that they pass away. I think that's going to improve rapidly. If anybody has any influence over people who are not getting their vaccines, to encourage them to do so.
You never know, you might get away at the end of this year.
I was hoping to get away for Pesach, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Not at all.
Wow, what an amazing couple. You know, they're about to retire and then they get pulled in to go and vaccinate, really. And Yasher Koach, and it's really going out there to get people to vaccinate, you know, really.
They're not putting their feet up anytime soon.
No, really, Yasher Koach, thank you so much. Amazing, amazing work.
Yeah, kol hakavod.
Yeah, and that temple, did you see that? I mean,
Beautiful building.
It's very impressive when you're there. The stairs and the gate. I mean, also obviously, you know, as they mentioned, it's all virtual. They've gone all virtual. They don't have any. They're completely shut. But they also have volunteers and nefesh workers as well. So, you know, yasher koach to them.
Amazing.
Everybody's doing their bit during this very unprecedented times. And, you know, even we went to speak to some of our colleagues out across the pond to see how they were dealing with the pandemic, you know, what they're doing with their show, Rabbi and Rebbetzin Baum in Keter Torah in New Jersey. So let's go over to see how they're managing.
Rabbi Shalom and Rebbetzin Debbie Baum, what an honor to be sitting here with you guys all the way across the Atlantic and chatting.
It's great to see you. You know, we wish we could be together again in London.
In the hummus bar, right? That's the last time.
The hummus bar was amazing.
Our very first double date in London.
It was ours too, by the way.
What were you guys
we know you're doing a wonderful job leading your community. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
What were you doing here at the time? You were scholars in residence somewhere.
Yeah, I was down in Marble Arch Synagogue for a week. Around an hour before Megillah reading last year, I get a call that one of the local high schools, Frisch, which is one of the very large yeshiva high schools, they told their students to stay home for Megillah reading. There were already some cases in the community. And then the next second, I'm getting calls from parents who are telling me, you heard this crazy thing that Frisch is telling the kids to stay home, not to come for Megillah reading. And I said, I don't know what's going on, but if the school says it, then you have to follow. I have 2 staff members that work at Frisch. They didn't get the memo. By the time I got to shul, I saw them there, and I told them, you have to go home. We have to set an example. We really had no clue what was happening. And we did set up, very last minute, we set up a live feed so that people could at least satisfy on some level the requirement. We usually have, let's say, 300-400 people stop at our house on Purim from the shul. You don't have to be intimidated by that. But we set it outside last year, and people were coming over and they said, you heard about this crazy term, socially distancing? And, you know, it was just, think about how the world has changed, and now we're getting ready for Purim again.
And then it was actually as a challenge for us because we do a lot of serving of food outside. And we only learned later how that used to be a wonderful thing. And then it turns into be the absolute thing that you're not supposed to do. And between the two of us, we were really caught in a quick amount of time. What are we supposed to be doing? Are we serving the hot dogs? Or are we not serving the hot dogs? And it became a little bit chaotic. And some people would pull up and throw their shalach manas at us. And some people would come all the way close to us. When I think of last year,
yeah, we didn't really know what we were doing.
We didn't know what we were doing.
Listen, who knew?
I have to tell you though, you Yasher Koach, because you were the first to lock down the shuls, Bergen County. I remember when that notice came out, you know, we all thought you, I mean, we thought you were crazy. We thought, you know, what is going on here? How could
they close the shul?
Yeah,
like,
how could they
we
close
never
it?
heard of such a thing.
You want to just hear a little bit of the details, and I haven't thought about it so much because, you know, we're always thinking ahead. But now we're hitting the anniversary because it was Shushan Purim. We had a meeting, and it's the RCBC, it's the rabbinic group. We get along very well. You know, we have very different style shuls, but it's mostly larger shuls. That's the way, the nature of our community. There aren't so many small shuls. So each of us represent, you know, at least 100 families. We have 500 families. Some other shuls have 600 families. A lot have less. And we kind of make these types of decisions, even though we never had this decision, together. Yeah, and it's very unified in that way, which helped, you know, all of that history, having one standard of kashrus in the community, having, even though we're very different types of shuls, having certain unifying principles, it helped us come together. And it was clear it was going to be all in or all out. But there was a lot of backdoor things taking place.
Tell us, you sent some pics about your sheer drive-in. Tell us about that.
Okay, so listen, you're a very youthful couple, both in age and in attitude. We're a bit older, but we try to be extremely engaging. So, you know, one of the challenges as a rabbi of a large shul is just to be able to continuously connect with the kids in the shul. And we have a great youth program. But I like to be involved with the kids, and Debbie as well, as much as possible. So there are two events that I run personally, you know, during the spring, summer.
This is regardless of COVID.
Yeah,
this is all the time.
It was Shabbat afternoon, but the real highlight is Saturday night learning. So very often we have events, let's say Shabbat, but first we'll have like a half hour afterwards, the kids come with their parents. We call it grandparent-child learning. It's very common.
Parent, grandparent.
Yeah. And I really, of any program that I really would have felt the sense of loss was to cancel that this year. Especially, we are having youth programming, but only on days that it's over 40 degrees Celsius, Fahrenheit, I'm sorry. 40 degrees, that would be tough. 40 degrees Fahrenheit. You know, I know the weather now every day. I know the windshield, you know, we're looking at, so we haven't been able in the winter for probably the last 2 months to have 2 weeks in a row of programming. So Debbie told me, because Debbie has a lot of the great ideas, let's do it in a parking lot. We're granted, Baruch Hashem, the builders of the shul built this huge parking lot.
You know, my inspiration was like a drive-in movie, right? If you can have, and I had this vision, everybody drives up, at least they'll see each other through the cars. And we'll be kind of together, but totally separate. And he can freeze and just walk back and forth and just go
what I
back
did was
and forth.
I came up, I learned something from, this is not a political, I assume this broadcast is not political, but I watched these they had President Biden, who's now the president, he was having these rallies where they were broadcasting his speeches over FM radio. And you have to keep in mind, anybody under the age of probably 25, 35, they have never listened to, definitely the kids, they don't listen to the radio. They all have their Spotify or whatever, the way they stream. And in the car, they're watching movies while their parents are driving. So they didn't even realize that cars have radios. Seriously. So we came up with this idea of a closed circuit FM radio station in our shul parking lot. And we broadcast it on there. And it's beautiful. It's a great event.
So everybody just kind of lines up. They have their lights on, and you don't have to open the windows because you can hear him through the radio.
Yeah.
So that means that everybody's hearing the same thing at the same time.
Raffle, sponsors, prizes, ice cream. We've had.
You did it. You led the.
Yeah, I do everything.
You give this guy a microphone, and he's having a good time.
I mean, I have my staff is out there. We have a staff that's helping, but I look at it as my event. and Debbie actually came a couple of weeks because she heard what was happening. The only problems we had was we tell them the way we have them answer questions. I give them some questions. Mostly it's learning the parents and the children and the grandparents.
Like they read a book inside they have to turn their little lights on, and there's a book there, and the two of them are sitting there learning. Except for when
I ask questions, trivia questions.
Right, trivia questions.
If the answer is A, mostly we were focusing on brachot this year. If the answer is A, flash the light. If the answer is B, honk your horns. The answer was always B, because I wanted it to be so loud. And Baruch Hashem, it worked out. It was, just using that as an example.
Tell us how you, as the Baum family, make it through every day, every week, every month, the last 12 months. What's your family bumper sticker, and what's the
Messing our bumper stickers.
So I guess what I would say is I would get rid of the bumper sticker. Like I would get rid of the bumper sticker because every day is different. Every day we feel different, and every day the challenge is different. And if you're stuck to a bumper sticker, you're really going to start hitting your head against the wall. That's at least just my, I'm an occupational therapist by nature, so I'm kind of like with the flow. I leave the house every day and go into people's, into other people's homes to treat them. That's my job.
At least for the last few months you've been back. You weren't able to do that for.
No, not in the beginning, right? Not in the beginning. And I just, I think from the challenges that we have, like one of the challenges we've had is he's moved his office into the house. That's like nonstop. I used to come home and it was quiet. Now it's just like nonstop, it's just nonstop. I'm sure you have similar, right? That's a huge family type of readjustment I'm sure it's for everybody, right. But certainly for here. And we've had to
Yeah, especially when I scream, when the kids are home and I scream, it's Zoom time, shh, shh. But
right, don't you have in the house shh?
It's like an office.
We're going live. We're going live. Everybody should
exactly. What?
At one point, I don't know if I share this with you, but at one point early on, probably around May, I felt like, look, there's so much tragedy going on. We ourselves in our shul and family members, not in our immediate family, but there was so much sadness. And look at us as a nation, how many of our leaders that we've lost. So at a certain point, I said, my congregants just need to laugh and to smile. And I wasn't sure how do we do it, because, to start cracking jokes in the middle of a pandemic is being very insensitive. But we waited a while. At the end of May, I really felt that people needed to be uplifted. So we turned my house. At this point, we still were not going into the shul. I've been in the shul plenty. I go in every day, and it's transition. But we turned my house into a sports radio studio. And I did a sports broadcast with another rabbi in town, Rabbi Cement. It's really all I've ever wanted to do in life, is to do sports radio. And then we did, even for our shul dinner, we had Modi, who was the entertainment. Yeah. And we have found that laughter is really.
You did a virtual dinner.
Yeah, we did a virtual dinner. It was one of our most successful dinners. No one had it. We didn't even send over food to people. We had discounts to some of the local eateries. I have found that the people in the shul, two things. One is you really find at times of crisis, not only resiliency, but you find new leadership. Like there are people who I just probably never acknowledged or realized, everyone's talented, what they could do.
Interesting.
As far as organizing, driving.
Right. There are people who emerged as just knowing how to do what to do. And some of them were surprises for us, to our shame, to our shame. Yeah.
Give us a blessing for our community. How do we get by?
Okay, I'll tell you what I have to say. First of all, they should listen to their rabbi and rabbinit. And you didn't pay me to say that.
Okay, yes.
No, because I'll tell you.
Should we donate?
Yeah, exactly. No, I will tell you why. No, I'll tell you why, because, what rabbis get to see, the rabbinic family gets to see, it was like this before, but I think especially now, is you really get to see the complexity. Every family has to take care of themselves, hopefully to reach out a little bit. You get to see the brushstroke of the entire community. And you have to give multiple messages because there's so many people now going through different experiences. You can't all do it in a slogan. But I think the way we get through is, look, I know this sounds melodramatic, but the Jewish nation is about resilience. And this is not a Jewish issue. You're in England, we're in the United States. I think that our parochial community could be a model to the broader non-Jewish secular community of how to coexist together. You know, in the United States of America now, it's extremely divided country. I don't know if you've heard about that. And I think within our Jewish community, it's true that there's divisiveness, but I think at the end of the day, we really see the bigger picture. And to be part of a community where you have a rabbi and a rebbitzin and a rabbanit who are looking after the people, I think that's very nourishing.
Now, you make a very good point about, you know, dealing with the different issues, right? I mean, at one hand, we're trying to be happy and make everybody, you know, lift spirits, but at the same time, we're dealing with funerals and losses. And it's like, you can't have that one slogan. And you really have to adjust. So that's, I think, the most challenging part. But,
it's very hard.
Well, thank you guys so much for.
Okay, it's great to speak to you.
So good to see you. Hatzlacha.
So interesting. That they're doing something very similar, right? I mean, you know, we had a bar mitzvah with a drive-in. You know, people were like that, and they're also out in the cold, in, you know, socially distanced with masks, and you know, so at the end of the day, we're all in the same boat.
Yep. We're all trying our best.
That's right. Very nice. And
we've also managed, Baruch Hashem, to have actual simchas in the shul.
Yes.
We had a bar mitzvah on Shabbos. We had a bat mitzvah after Shabbos. And we're going to meet family Greenberg and family Crystal now.
Yes, very exciting. So happy that they were able to move forward with it and bring simcha to the shul.
And just if I can say, before we show you the Greenbergs, we recorded this on Thursday morning. And I said, I hope everything will go well on Shabbos. But I can now report he laned magnificently. It was a pleasure to hear. And I had my own son, who's bar mitzvah in a couple of months, to listen to learn from the model bar mitzvah boy. So there you go.
He did a wonderful job, and it was real simcha, the real mitzvah, like we said. So,
yeah, mazel tov to all the families. Let's meet you.
So that's Jordan, right over there, who's just been called up in shul for his very first time. A big mazel tov to you all from the whole Norris League community.
Thank you very much.
To Paul, Nadia, Rocco, Savannah, what a lovely family. Look at you. So this is Thursday morning. You've just had your first call up. What are your plans for Shabbat?
So we are going to have a big meal at home, catered, and then we're going to see family on after show. Yeah, and back here, of course, we're going to Lane Mishpatim.
Mishpatim, nice. Well, we're looking forward to hearing you. By the time this goes live, we'll have heard it, so we trust it has gone marvellously well.
I'm sure
I'm sure.
And Nadia, how's all the planning been going?
Yes, we've delivered boxes and we've got a Zoom set up, so
nice.
We're doing what we can in these times.
Could you have imagined this a year ago?
Not at all. I had a big party planned, but please God, one day.
And when's your bar mitzvah? You look very excited.
5 years.
Plenty time.
I think it's
plenty
a big
time, 5 years. Yeah, and Savannah, when were you bat mitzvah? How long?
3 years.
Oh, so you're like the professional.
She's a veteran.
A veteran, the role model older sibling. There you go. Oh well, I wish you all a big mazel tov. Enjoy the simcha.
Thank you.
And you know, come back. It's good. I'm hoping people can see that there's stuff going on here. It's all happening here at Norris League. All right, mazel tov, and good luck, Jordan.
Thank you.
acknowledge that I am accepting upon myself the mitzvah of the Torah.
And now for the traditional parents' blessing.
May God make you like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah.
Okay, so here we are in the shul. This is Motzei Shabbos, Saturday night after Parashat Mishpatim, and we've just had the wonderful, amazing, beautiful service for Chloe's bat mitzvah. Rabbanit spoke beautifully. Now, Chloe, you gave a wonderful, wonderful Dvar Torah, and I know you also gave a very nice Dvar Torah on Thursday night when you did the challah bake.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us how you prepared for your Dvar Torah?
Well, I spent a long time learning with Yael, and we came up with loads of ideas, and we kind of wrote ideas, and then we kind of made it, we like amalgamated them all together to make like one big idea, if that makes any sense.
It made a lot of sense. It was absolutely beautiful. So you gave 2 Divrei Torah for your bat mitzvah. Now I know today your Hebrew birthday was on Thursday, and your English birthday is not for another week, which means legally you don't need to wear a mask. Okay. Now it's only been about 2.5 months since Harry's bar mitzvah, hasn't it? Since your bar mitzvah, you've been wearing your tefillin every day, and you've been an amazing role model to all your friends. It's wonderful, and you obviously get that from your wonderful parents, Louise and Gary.
Yes.
Woohoo! And Sophie, why don't you tell us, when is your bat mitzvah?
In 3 years.
3 years?
Yes.
Okay, well now that you know from your older sister what to do, are you getting a bit nervous? No, you've got plenty of time for that.
She's never
Yeah.
nervous.
Okay, so Louise, how have you found all the preparations?
Well, I mean, this is the only way I know how to do a simcha, because I've now done 2 in lockdown, and I think this is the way forward. Like last minute, what it's all about, it's about the laning or the Dvar Torah, it's about bringing people together, celebrating, and the rest of it is really not that important. And that's how I think it should go going forward.
Do you know that? It's so inspirational. You know, it's more about the mitzvah than the bar.
Absolutely.
You know. And,
We're all about the mitzvah.
That is very, very inspirational. And what about you, Gary? I know you're a hard worker.
Disagree profoundly. It's all about the bar and not about the mitzvah. No, I totally agree. It's quite nice just to keep back to basics. Look, I love a party. Louise loves a party. But that's not what this is about. And what this is I keep calling it COVID calibration. You kind of work out what's important. And you kind of, a lot of background noise. And I think what's important is that you get, the most important thing is you get to spend time with your family and friends. And that's what we've been able to do in our 2 simchas in lockdown. And it's been wonderful. It really has been.
That is amazing.
Some
Right.
pots.
Well, Louise, Gary, Chloe, Harry, Sophie, we wish you a big, big mazel tov from all of us at HGSS.
Thank you. Thank you. By the way, big shout out to the rabbinic team and to the honorary officers just for everything you guys do and for putting this all together. It really has been absolutely wonderful and made it very unique simchas for us. So thank you. Simchot for us. So thank you.
Well, from our side of it, it's an absolute pleasure because, you know, we've been dealing with so many problems, so many issues, and sadly, many bereavement. When it comes to a simcha, this is what keeps us going. So thank you for sharing your simcha with us, in our shul, with the team, with the community. It really means a lot to us, and I hope you only go, as they say, Michael El-Chal, from strength to strength, only simchas and nachas from all your wonderful, beautiful children, and mazel tov! Woo!
Okay, what wonderful families, and very innovative way they did the Havdalah service. Yasher Koach, you did a beautiful job, and with the little lights. And
it was just such a pleasure to work with these families and to work with the simcha. You know, as you know, as part of our team in the rabbinic team, you know, we've got so many difficult things to deal with. But when it comes to a simcha, I just absolutely love it, and that's what keeps me going.
Absolutely,
it's such a pleasure.
We're really are so fortunate and very appreciative that they continued to move forward with it. It was a touch and go with the crystals, whether they were going to do it in shul. They did a challah bake, a Zoom challah bake, which was really beautiful and so special with Yael all the way from South Africa. I mean, that's the beauty of it, that they were able to continue with that. Yet, at shul, it was touch and go, and they went full force ahead, and it was really very special. So,
once it was over, like, yes, we did it.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So we have a interesting clip here with, you heard of the storyteller Hanoch Teller?
Yes, he's written a great many books.
Great many books, right? So we introduced lockdown literature, which we'll get to in a moment. But now he's gone into podcasts. That's really the latest thing now. People going on podcasts. And he was in Israel on lockdown and said, you know what? Let me go and teach people about the history of Israel. And so let's go over to Rabbi Friedman and Hanoch Teller about what he has to say.
Rabbi Hanoch Teller, welcome to Nltv TV.
Thank you very much for having me. My pleasure.
So Rabbi Teller and I go way back. Rabbi Teller's home in Sydney, Australia is the same home that I share. I dare say that over the years, Rabbi Teller, you've probably been to my parents' home maybe as many times as I have over the many years. So
well, that's the only place I would go. I love your parents. They're very dear to me, and it's quite a relationship. They are, I just love them. They are salt of the earth in the best way. Just, it's a humbling experience to be among such good people, really.
Well, thank you. And then, our continued relationship, Edmonton, you being there for Millie to get into Michala and be part of Michala. So thank you for all your support and friendship over the years. So Rabbi Teller, you are with us today to discuss your new podcast. Tell us a little about it.
Okay, new is really the operative word. It just was launched a few days ago. I don't know when you're going to air this, but even if it's 2 weeks from now, it's still really fresh news right out of the oven. I guess the history is during the beginning, a year ago, the beginning of the pandemic, my family, we've been blessed with a very large family. So kids that are home and kids that are all over, kids not even in Israel, some that are abroad, they asked that I give them some kind of thing over Zoom. And I thought to myself, I didn't like, these family things, which are very nice, and how's everybody, and see every grandchild's new tooth. I want to do something a little more substantial. And the fact of the matter is, even my own children, born and raised in Israel, were ignorant about the history of Israel. And I thought, here's an opportunity to do something educational. And actually, it was a good shidduch. It was a great match because it's history, which I'm somewhat competent in, and it's also telling stories, which is my strength. And so by telling the stories, and then my son Mechutanim started joining it, and everyone loved it. And they were learning things which you really should know. You go by a street, you don't know who this name is, and all of a sudden, this is a very important player in building in the early struggle to build Israel. And that gave me the idea to launch the podcast about the history of Israel. In conjunction is that I teach a class, which maybe Millie took, I'm not sure what class she was in. I teach a class in yeshiva also, even in yeshiva and also in seminaries, about character. We call it honorable mention. It's about civility, being a dignified person. So every fourth week, and it's the small segments. It's a 20-minute podcast, 20 minutes about the history of Israel, very story intensive, a lot of laughter and humor, but and very, very poignant stories as well. And then every fourth week is what character building.
Right. So this podcast is for who?
It's, well, I want to hope it's for really everyone. When I say everyone, I mean certainly for Jewish people, people who can be so Zionistic, people who know nothing about Zionism, but it's also my great hope it'll also appeal to evangelicals who have a strong love of Israel, and they're also not so knowledgeable, but they care about Israel. So I think this will be beneficial if they would hear this as well. And I've already gotten some feedback. I mean, it's just really new that they're really excited about it. They like it, they find it intriguing and very informative.
That's amazing. Now certainly I think our viewers will be familiar with the fact that you speak to Jewish audiences around the world, and you've published dozens of books that we all have on our shelves. But I know you also speak to Christian audiences. Tell us a little about that.
Okay, so I don't know how far back we're going, and I don't know how much time we have, but my main connection is there's a mega church in South Carolina where I have a strong connection. That's opened a few other doors, but it all happened very interestingly. I travel a lot. I should say I traveled a lot. I haven't been on a plane in a full year. And my last gig actually was at this church in South Carolina, where they asked me to give a presentation about the Holocaust. It all began, I used to fly El Al all the time. And then I felt a sense of patriotism and obligation. They were Shomer Shabbat, and it's Israel's airline. But once it was privatized, I no longer felt that sense of obligation, and I could save a little money. And so I started going on to a different carrier. And if you fly a non-Jewish carrier to Israel from America, and I used to fly at least about every 3 weeks, I'm a firm believer in Shalom Bayit. Shalom Bayit. I say goodbye to my house very often. So one of my flights, when you fly an airline to the Holy Land, how often is it going to be? You're going to sit next to a priest or a minister or a pastor. And it happened often. But one time, I don't even know how long ago it was. Maybe it was maybe 9, 8 years ago, something like that. I sat next to this pastor and we started, got friendly. He's a very learned, scholarly person. We're exactly the same age. And the truth is, the whole flight he tried to convert me. He has not yet succeeded. But in the last laugh was, I'm a senior docent in Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial. And 2 days later, I took his church on a tour of Yad Vashem. He was very impressed. Everybody was very impressed by that tour. And they invited me to come speak for them. And so I've been in there, at least I should say, their social hall already 3 times. And it was mega. And it's so interesting. We're talking about South Carolina. For your audience, just in case, South Carolina is not New York. It's not Los Angeles. It's not Chicago. It's not Miami Beach. It's South Carolina. It's not the most Jewish place in the world. So it's a mega church. And they had this marquee on the street, very beautiful area. And they had this like, Rabbi Hanoch Teller, like, apocalypse now is coming, like somebody knows who this is. So, and we spoke there, and each time it's really remarkable. And for us, it's an indictment. I spoke there each time on a Wednesday night at 6:30. Now, 6:30 is busy. That's, rush hour, getting the kids into bed and feeding them supper and back from school and doing homework. Each time there were well over 500 people. Well, I'm sure another thing too. It really was amazing, and such a riveted audience.
Wow.
Riveted, concerned, interested audience. So I wrote a book on the Holocaust entitled Heroic Children. Stories of children. When the Holocaust was over, obviously those who survived were very anxious that they should tell their story. The story that has not been told, it's probably the only field in Holocaust that has not been so developed, because as we all know, the Holocaust is the most written about crime in the history of history. But the one that has not been told is the story of children. They did not speak at the time, and they really have not yet spoke. So I felt an obligation to go around the world and gather their stories before it was too late. So I worked on this book for a long time. We published it a couple of years ago. And so in any event, this is Beaufort, South Carolina. I've been there, I've sold the book there. I think there are more copies of Heroic Children in Beaufort, South Carolina than there probably are in Queens, New York, or in Norris Lee. And we can rectify this, I hope. But right now, there's a lot of books over there by Hanoch Teller.
All right, wow. So how do our viewers tune into your podcast?
Very simple. What you do is you go to Teller from Jerusalem. Teller as in Hanoch Teller, or as in storyteller, or as in bank teller, if you have that. Tellerfromjerusalem.com. Okay. Once you get there, that'll take you to the podcast page, and then you click. It's really simple, user-friendly. And on any platform that you're accustomed to, you'll be able to listen to it. And I really need to get the word out. So I wish you can help me. And I'm quite confident whoever you tell them about it will thank you for the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Hanoch Teller. I wish you good luck with that. I look forward to tuning into your podcast. And, I've read many of Hanoch Teller's books, and we're all looking for good books to read during this time. It's a bit fed up of the spring. There's only so much you can watch. Which brings us towards the end of Norris Lee TV this week's episode. Lockdown Literature with our very own Martin Kaye.
Good evening, everyone. This evening I'm here with Debbie Kobrin to speak about a book that is listed, or shortlisted actually, for this year's Wingate Prize. It's called A Paragon and is written by the Irish writer Colin McCann. In a nutshell, this book is about 2 families that both lose a young daughter. One to a nervous 18-year-old Israeli soldier outside her school in a Palestinian village, and the other to a suicide bomber on Ben Yehuda Street. We're taken on 2 journeys from the perspective of both fathers, one an Israeli and one a Palestinian. They meet and form a shared bond. Through the unfulfilled lives of these 2 girls, and without any political judgments whatsoever, we have a well-written insight into the current Israeli-Palestinian situation as it affects 2 individuals and their families. So Debbie, tell me, what made you read Epeirogon? And tell me what about the book it is that you would recommend to the viewers of Norrisley TV?
Evening, Martin. Thank you for inviting me onto the panel. Martin, this book was given to me as a birthday present, and the depth of the book, the way the book's constructed is absolutely brilliant, and it's just worth reading for the way he's written the book. But for me, the subject matter was so interesting because it's the subject matter is political, but he writes it on such a human level. And it gave me amazing insight into the acceptance of others, opening up your heart to the other. The borders are erased in this book.
It's interesting because I found that each chapter reveals almost a new insight into the wider world and the world in which the characters exist. He paints such vivid pictures of everyday life and how their life has suffered. And you feel in very many instances that you are alongside the character, living the experiences that they are going through. In particular, when you arrive at a checkpoint to go through from West Bank into Israel, and you're sitting there and you're praying to yourself as you're reading the book, please let him just go through without any hassle whatsoever. And you find that sometimes it doesn't happen, sometimes it does, many times it doesn't, but I won't spoil it for anybody. I found myself sucked into this story, I would say almost seduced from the first page, both physically and emotionally. I did read one review that suggested that one shouldn't read this book standing up. And I can understand why, because it's a book that you have to sit down and take a deep breath after some of the chapters. And the chapters are written in an interesting way, which I won't spoil it for potential readers, but you just sit there and you just got to suck it all in and take it all in and wonder sometimes why the author has referred to something that happened maybe 300 years before. And then later on, you'll see the relevance of it. Right. There are certain ironies, which we wouldn't know about living here, but one I found slightly amusing was the irony that the Palestinians, when they throw back the tear gas grenades that the Israeli soldiers have thrown at them, they call it the right of return. There are parts of this book that make you so angry and others that make you just so sad.
Right. Well, the book is essentially about humanity and grieving. And there's a magical spirit and warmth that run through these two fathers. And within this pain of losing their daughters, they enlighten others. And they give us the message just to be human. I mean, Martin, it was an amazing thing how dense the book is and how much information is given. But you never feel overloaded with emotion or history or scientific evidence that he gives. And what I thought was amazing is that you get this message that pain is pain, bloodshed is bloodshed, and the fertility of war, that nothing is worth losing a child. And he constantly comes back to this. And I almost felt it's probably what parents losing a child goes through, because they're distracted and then they come back to this deep loss. And although there's a word for losing a spouse or a parent, there's no word for losing a child. And I don't think one word could ever encapsulate the pain and sense of loss and desperation when one loses a child.
Well, it's interesting because not so much when I finished the book, but there were periods after I put down a particularly heavy chapter, and I thought to myself, I'd really like to ask the author why he wrote this or why he wrote it from this perspective. And certainly at the end of the book, I thought, I've got to get in touch with this author, and I made it a mission almost. I'm going to try and see if I can secure an interview for Norrisley TV for Cullen McCann for us, because certainly ahead of the Wingate Prize, and I hope he does well in it, will be. But certainly just for us, just for me, for unanswered questions. I'm sure you've got unanswered questions as well about the book.
Definitely. I mean, Martin, he talks about meeting these fathers and sitting in the audience crying. And so I think he must be a very special human being, but also extremely busy. I think, well, I know that Steven Spielberg has bought the rights to this book. So good luck, Martin.
Oh dear. I wish you hadn't have told me that, but I'll still try.
We'll have a little wager. If you get him on, it will be a big for Norrisley, and I'll bring you a piece of schmaltz herring for Shabbat.
That's the deal. Okay, thanks, Debbie. So just to remind everybody, this is the book. Is actually, I think this coming week, it comes out in paperback. So Debbie and I both recommend it. And if you trust our judgment, go out and buy it and read it. Thanks, Debbie. Good night.
Martin. Bye. Wow, Martin always brings us such interesting books, you know, and now he's even possibly getting the author of this at Paragon. I mean, it sounds amazing. It sounds very emotional. Martin, he said he's going to give me a copy of it, so I'm looking forward to reading that.
I look forward to reading it myself.
Yeah, very fascinating. And I'm still working on getting Goldie, so from the On Division book.
Yeah, you promised me you'd lend me that one, On Division.
I still have it. I didn't come over to you, but when you
you know where I live.
You know, yeah, exactly. You know where I live.
I'll pick it up from you. I pass your house more often than you pass mine.
Actually, I guess I sometimes run by your house. I guess I could stop by with it. All right, next time. But I think Gail actually asked for it. You're gonna have to fight over it.
I'll let Gail couldn't read the whole thing in an hour, so I'll let her have it first.
Okay, great. So we look forward to seeing that. And then I think he has a giveaway. He didn't forget about that. So tune in next week to see what that's all about. So something to look forward to. And I
look forward.
Yeah, really, that book sounds really fascinating. So we have
a lot of segments we've had on this week's issue. But
really,
before we say goodbye, we must talk about Purim coming up.
Yes.
It's only 10 days away.
Right. Just to mention, just this week we have don't forget our eco-friendly talks that we have on Wednesday night with Rabbi Friedman and two rabbis who talk about where it is in the Torah. So that should be interesting.
So that's on Wednesday night. What time?
At 8 p.m.
Excellent. 8 p.m. Wednesday night. Wonderful.
And then we have a run up to Purim next week. Oh my gosh.
Well, that's why we need to mention it now, because the festivities kick off on Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. With ourselves together with the Aleph Center crew. We're doing Fancy Dress and a Hamantash and Bake on Sunday afternoon.
And Roger, that's really for the family. It's for the kids, right? It's really
the kids with their parents. It's a family thing, so you will have been contacted about that. On Monday, we do have an afternoon tea at 2 o'clock, and we'll be bringing tea to you. Tea and a croissant and a scone with a mini butter and a mini jam.
Tea.
Sorry?
So it's a good old English tea.
Absolutely. But we used to do this in the school.
That's a register.
Yeah, you must register for that. It's all on the website.
And this
that's for our over 70s. And we've got Alan Dean, who's the Radio 4 presenter. He will be presenting to us about Jewish life in the East End and the foxtrot and the dancers. It's a Petticoat Lane foxtrot. It'll be a great presentation, bit of nostalgia. So we do hope that if you're of the vaccination age, you'll be able to join us for that.
We should also mention that it's for HESS members to get the tea, right? So those are specific.
Yeah, this is a member exclusive, I have to add.
You're welcome to join the Zoom, but
yeah, people can join. But you have to register though, because it's on Zoom. It won't be Facebook Live.
Correct.
It's going to be on Zoom.
Right.
Yeah. So that's Monday.
Well, but then Monday evening we have a French cuisine. with,
Oh, yeah.
and we're bringing in a very special guest from France, the Grand Rabbin, Moshe Subak from the Grand Synagogue de Victoire. So that should be quite interesting. We're having the Fabienne and
I have no idea what you said just now. Can't speak a word of French.
Malky speaks French. So we're going to have a French cuisine, talk about cigars, and teach us how to bake the salt and the sweet for Purim, as well as a very special rabbi from France coming in. So also email Gail for the Zoom link. That should be quite interesting.
Amazing. You've also forgotten on Monday night, we've got Nltv TV.
Oh, absolutely. We have a very special Nltv TV at 6:30, right before the French class. You are right. We have the Garden Globes Award.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I think
Yes. Okay. So we did a lot as a team. We put a lot of virtual events.
we'll talk next week about what's coming up for Purim itself, because I think it's too early. There's too much for you to remember, everyone, all our listeners.
That's right. But this is very important, though, the virtual events. Because we did so many, we're having a Garden Globe, and everybody needs to put in their vote. We have nominations. We had 3 nominated to different categories. Check out the form that you have to fill out. Please put in your votes. And next Monday we will be in our tux and gowns, right, Rabbi Guttentag?
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. This is the real deal. We're going to give out the special awards to the winners. We'll have very special features. It'll be a great surprise, something really to look forward to. It's been quite a year, quite to look back at, but a lot has been accomplished and done, and we want to take that moment to remember. So
every vote counts.
That's right. So there's lots going on for Purim, but now during half term, we are encouraging the kids to color a picture, color a painting, do something to spread happiness during this month of Adar for Purim. We're calling it Windows of Happiness for Purim. So draw something nice, draw something happy, put it on your window, take a picture, email it to worldwidehappywindows@gmail.com. worldwidehappywindows@gmail.com. Thursday night we have the big event at 8:00. So and of course
Awesome.
reading.
They're working very hard on that.
Yes. So we'll have more information for you all next week. But look out in the emails as they come out on Facebook and so on and so forth. So it's been a great evening. Thank you all for joining us. And have a great week.
And it's good night from me. And it's good night from Rabbi.